employment dismissal of a public employee.
There's somewhere it says
The April 23rd, 2015 meeting of the Granada Community Services District Board of Directors is called to order. Roll call, please.
President Leonard Warren.
Here.
Vice President Matthew Clark.
here.
Director Jim Blanchard.
Here.
Director David Seaton.
Here.
Director Rick Wellman.
Here.
And at the table is our General Manager Chuck Duffy and our Legal Counsel Jonathan Whitwer, and I'm Julia Canito, the Administrator.
Could council report out from the closed session that preceded this open session?
There was no reportable action taken.
Thank you. General public participation. I have no speaker sheets. Does anyone want to speak on an item not on the agenda? Hearing none, I have...
Leonard, should we mention the fire district meeting and the big cleanup at the end of the month?
Yeah, I have two announcements. That's one of them. Our quarterly recycle event is 2 days from now, Saturday, April 25th. And I assume that the flyer's on the website. Delia?
Yes, it is.
And you were going to put out a notice on Nextdoor?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I didn't check kind of a lot of email on Nextdoor sometimes.
It's on. Great,
Okay.
thank you.
And the other announcement I have is the annual Snapshot Day is coming up. I haven't double checked, but it's essentially always the first Saturday in May, whatever that date is. Looks like it'd be about May 2nd. And that's where a bunch of volunteers go out and take samples of various water courses that flow to the ocean, and they compare year-to-year results to see if the pollution running off of the land is getting better or worse. So we're always looking for volunteers. If you might be interested, contact the Resource Conservation District, I think is the best contact. Okay, any other announcements?
The fire department meeting on Wednesday.
Why don't you do that one?
I haven't got the email in front of me, but on Wednesday at, I believe, 7 p.m.
Yeah, I think so.
7 p.m. at the El Granada Fire Station, there's a big public meeting where the fire department is going to present its ideas for the properties out here in front of the post office on the two different parts of the big lot they bought recently. So I think it would be great if the public would attend the meeting. It's at the firehouse right here. Listen to the proposals and give your feedback. So it's a good opportunity to get into a pretty critical process for us.
Thank you. Any other comments on items not on the agenda? Okay, I had received last night a request to reorder the agenda, but since we have people here for, I assume, all of the agenda items, it is generally not in the public's best interest to reorder the agenda after it's published. So we will go in the order that they're on here. Item 1, consideration of sewer permit for 9-unit Ocean View Place condominium project at Avenue Cabrillo and Coronado Street. And it gives the APN owner is Irizarry. Chuck?
Yeah.
You like doing that, don't you?
Absolutely.
Well, as I provided in the board packets, a memo that just kind of outlines why this is being presented to the board. Under my authority, I can only administratively issue sewer permits that have up to 2 capacity units of sewer. We call them ERUs, equivalent residential units of sewer capacity, and anything over that must go to the board for approval. And this particular project has 9 units and therefore will require 9 ERUs of sewer capacity. And so we've provided basically a copy of the application, the planning approval letter, set of plans, and the other required documents for when they submit the application. Those are provided to us, and there may actually be someone here for this project. It's a 9-unit complex, which is quite a bit larger than any we've seen in a while, but the economy kind of down, we haven't done many permits lately. But, the only issue that's a little bit different about this particular project is it does have a density bonus incentive unit. So zoning, it's in the R3, S3DR, which is Design Review Zoning District, which allows multiple family residents. The zoning requirements allow 1,250 square feet within the lot per unit. And this one qualifies for 8, but it's getting the additional under the density bonus program. And unless anybody else has any other questions, I've outlined the permit fees that would be due should the board approve the permit. In order for it to actually be issued, the permittees will be required to provide a San Mateo County Department pickup notice, and they will also have to pay all of the outstanding permit fees. They will require purchasing some non-contingent assessments, which are not currently assessed on the parcel, so.
This is in a section of town where a lot of the sewer lines are really old. Have the ones
Actually,
for
this
this
one.
been replaced?
Yeah, this one will be connected, it's on the corner, well, not really on the corner because there's a house in between, but it's on Avenue Cabrillo at Coronado Street, and the main line there was replaced at our last replacement project, so.
Yeah, the reason I asked that is because we upsized the ones that are, the old ones that are sometimes smaller.
I don't know that they made it any bigger than it was, but it is new.
Right. So for people that are watching, let me hold this up. So this is Avenue Cabrillo, and that's Coronado.
Are there any questions?
I just kind of an open question. Anybody who wants to jump in and help can answer this. Generally, we get involved in the decision process on whether something conforms to the LCP or doesn't conform to the LCP, or if it requires a massive variance in size. In reading through this, I see maybe half a sentence relating to the LCP in it from the, I think it's from the Planning Commission. They basically said it meets the requirements and standards, boom, and that's the only reference in the entire document. I know there is some controversy on this, and I'd be interested in, does this totally conform with the LCP, which is kind of our guiding light, or are we being asked for significant variances from the LCP to approve this?
Take a stab at it.
The county staff report is finding that it's consistent with the LCP. If you're asking about consistent from a sewer standpoint, I don't think they got into that very much, but we have our own variance process if this were a non-build-out unit. In other words, it was not included in build-out. But the LCP and the county regulations do provide for this density bonus.
Okay.
I mean, the applicant is probably here. The staff report says this is a very low-income unit. We even have our own policy that says that we give priority to a very low-income unit. That's the density bonus unit. So it seems consistent.
Well, I mean, my question was more is if we, we have a total number of sewer permits we're going to be allowed, and is this going to hurt that, or is this well with under that, or are there any issues with our total numbers that by granting a high-density unit, is that going to hurt our overall capacity for other houses that are coming down the line, or are we okay on all of those? I can't answer that myself. So.
I guess the question is who makes that determination, the county?
I mean, if somebody came in with a 400, unit thing, we say, well, that's beyond the LCP capacity. Okay, this is obviously much less than that, but
So
Is
this
it-
is consistent with the LCP build-out numbers.
Mhm.
You might say, except for the density bonus unit, but then you would say, except that the LCP has a provision
Okay,
allowing
that's
density
fine.
bonus. This isn't like something, like a caretaker's unit that is in the zoning for which there was no residential unit counted upon, shall I say, in the LCP.
Mhm. Okay.
You would say this was probably counted upon in the LCP.
Okay.
I could just add to, our district engineer had reviewed the plans, there was some back and forth, and the plans were approved by him. They do meet our specifications for sewer requirements, and this approved sewer plans have been provided as well. So,
Okay, because our normal routine is someone will come in with an application for a lot, which is, let's say, half the normal size, and we have to grant a variance, for that. But it seems everybody's saying we don't need to grant a variance for this. This fits within.
Right, correct.
The density. Okay, so that's what I was after.
As far as the build-out question, I'm going to disagree with council because the build-out calculations were based on land area and what the zoning, the number of units that the zoning allows for any particular land area. And so the bonus unit is not in the build-out numbers. As the staff report that we just heard from the administrator states that the amount of land allows 8 units, then that 8 is the build-out number.
Well, there's a chart that gives you the build-out numbers, just basically how many acres and how much zoning. And so the question is, does the fact that elsewhere in the LCP it talks about density bonus, is that included?
Oh, the density bonus is in the LCP?
Yeah.
I did not recall that.
My concern was more, let's just say it's zoned for 4 and this is an 8 complex coming in. So if that's not relevant, then, okay, I'm not concerned about the bonus unit, coming in. It just is the whole thing itself within the LCP.
Right, and it meets the zoning, which is an
Okay.
implementing ordinance of the LCP. But your example, if it didn't meet the zoning, then that would be all different. We would be looking at variances, et cetera.
Any other questions?
Is there a motion?
Well, you should provide an opportunity for if there's any.
Okay,
members
well, I have no
of the public.
speaker slips. Does anybody want to speak on this item? Hearing none, is there a motion?
What is the,
That tells you how thrilled the board is with this project.
is our option just to approve the application for the sewer permit?
Yes.
Then I'll step up and say I move that we accept or approve the sewer application for this property.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? I believe that was 5-0. Okay, item 2. Consideration of sewer permit for 12-unit Mavericks apartment project at Avenue Portola and Coronado Street. Let's see where the map is for that one.
Okay, again, I think it's coincidental these two happen at the same time.
And the
We-
owner is Cypress Group Development. Let me hold this up before you start. So the wide street down the middle is Avenue Portola, post office is down here. So this is on the corner, a block up from the post office on the left as you're leaving the post office.
Okay, again, we have a Class 1B sewer permit up for presentation to the board for approval. Again, I'm not authorized to approve the permit because with 12 units, it requires 12 ERUs of equivalent residential units of sewer capacity. This project is on it's 16,900 square foot parcel. The R3, S3 zoning district would allow, actually, I believe it was 13.5 units, and this particular project has 12 units in it. And so it does conform to the zoning requirements. There's no density bonus in this project. They have provided us with have they provided us? One of these projects has provided us with a pickup notice. I'm not sure which, but.
I think you said this one does.
Yeah, one of them had provided it. If they did, then the outstanding item for issuance of the permit would be payment of the permit fees. A little unusual, this particular large lot only was assessed for one non-contingent assessment, which means they've been paying for a non-contingent assessment since 1998, when we formed our assessment district.
That's because the board at that time basically asked every property owner in the district, how many ERUs would you like to be assessed for?
Right.
And they didn't pay any attention to the zoning at the time.
Right. Well, for the owner at the time, it would be a benefit, but the current owner and the person who wants to develop it, who will now benefit from the extra sewer capacity that became available because of the treatment plant expansion, will now have to pay for those additional 11 units of sewer capacity outright, and I've outlined the fees in the memo here. And again,
For our viewing public, it's $250,000.
yeah, it's a considerable amount. It's broken out into connection fee, which is charged per living unit at $4,700, and then we have what's called a contingent assessment fee at $8,371 per unit as well. And we have the purchase of 11 non-contingent assessments, and the one that's on there will continue until that is paid off, but the other ones they're buying outright. So if the board were to approve this project, they would need to come in, pay the balance of their fees, and I would be able to issue a permit for them. The approved sewer plans are provided in the packet. Again, we had some back and forth with the district engineer, and he did approve the plans that you see. And unless you have any questions.
Same question. Because, I mean, in the county, in the thing, they basically just say, boom, it was approved. They talk about the appeal process, and things like that. But the same question to our attorney is, are you, question for you, Jonathan, is do you feel again that this is within the LCP compliance?
It complies with the zoning.
Okay.
So that would mean that there's no variance required.
Okay.
I'll mention one potential thing of interest. The most people that have ever been in this room since we have rented this space was a pre-application planning meeting held by the county where there were somewhere around 60 people in the audience. Every single one of them except the applicant opposed to the project as being grossly oversized for the location.
And I absolutely understand that.
They did.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
No, and I'm saying our role is to approve projects that conform to the LCP.
Yeah, I understand that.
So if people want to appeal it, we
Oh.
can't appeal it, and we can't deny a project that meets our requirements.
Right.
So
Because, yeah,
I understand what the community is saying.
it's just my last chance to point out that
It's okay.
this is universally opposed. And it-
There's a process for that.
Suggest that you provide opportunity for members of the public to speak.
Could you go to the microphone and identify yourself?
Mr. President, members of the board, my name is Kurt Anderson. I'm the architect for the project. I was at that meeting. There was a substantial amount of bodies here. And as this gentleman pointed out, we did reduce the project from 16 units to 12. It's under the allowable zoning, so you're picking up that unit and a half that you were worried about for your other capacity or your other project. We made a lot of changes in that project. We worked very closely with the community. We had a couple meetings and we made a lot of changes. And I appreciate what the president's saying, but I gotta tell you guys, I think it's a gorgeous building. I think it's gonna improve the neighborhood. I think it's gonna be, we're putting street improvements on both sides. I think it's gonna be, when it's all completed and when it's finished, I think everyone's gonna be very, very satisfied with the project. So without further ado, I respectfully request you to grant us approval so we can get rolling. We're in for permits. We expect, we're going back in another week with our last round of comments, and we're hoping to break ground in a couple months, so.
Just out of curiosity, where did you get the water capacity from?
The water capacity.
Did the property owner buy into the Crystal Springs project in the 90s, or how did you get the sufficient water for the project?
Mr. President, I'm the architect, I'm not the engineer, so I can't answer the question because I honestly don't know the answer.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions? Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the project as presented.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 5-0. Item 3.
Thank you.
Consideration of local parks and recreation facility priorities. Boy, that's hard to read. Priorities survey results. As staff debates who can pass the buck to who.
No. I didn't know if you. So what this is, we got the results back. I think we reported back at the last board meeting that we received over 600 surveys in the mail or online or whatnot. And Delia was in the process of working with Patrick Kiernan, Professor Patrick Kiernan, to tabulate the results and put them into some kind of format where your board could actually see what the trends were, who was voting for what the demographics are, things like that. So I haven't had time to talk to Patrick about this, and I think it's kind of early because we literally just got all this stuff, I don't know, it was today or a couple days ago. So I think what we maybe want to do tonight is to have Patrick come up to the podium and explain his methodology, how you tabulated results, all that kind of stuff. Then you can ask him questions, and I think at a future board meeting, it may even be a special meeting, we can have him really go into it and boil down to the numbers and show you what all this stuff means. So unless someone's got some other ideas on this.
Well, before Patrick makes it to the podium, I had told people that I was hoping for a 50% response rate, and people said, oh, you'll be lucky if you get 10%. And so according to Delia's computation, we got 28.3% response rate, which is apparently pretty good. And maybe Professor Kiernan can speak to that. So you're up.
It's your microphone.
Good evening. My name is Patrick Tierney. I'm a professor of recreation, parks, and tourism at San Francisco State. I live in Miramar. I've lived there for 25 years and have been involved in a number of studies and surveys internationally, nationally, statewide, and locally for over the 30 years. So this was an opportunity for me to have a little service, give back to the community I live in. And so the process, if we want to talk about that, is that when I got the survey in the mail, I said, heck, I can help out here. So I contacted Delia and offered my services for pro bono. And so the key here is the survey was already made. The survey was already out in the field. I don't have anything to do with the survey. The survey to me, though, looks reasonable, very reasonable. There's no serious flaws in the survey that I could see. You can always question about doing things a little differently, but there's no major problems with the survey. So then, as the surveys came in, we had a group of my students and a typist in Granada here enter the data. I personally oversaw error checking and verification, so I took it seriously because the database is the key to everything. If you work this hard, you want to make sure the database is accurate. So I feel, very confident that with the error checking and the verification that we did, that the data in there is accurate. Then at that point, it was a matter of working with Dahlia, making sure we were all on the same page as far as analysis. Basically, I used an advanced statistical program called SPSS. Used it for many years. We don't need to really talk about the program. It's just very sophisticated. We're not doing sophisticated analysis here. We're basically just running the numbers on each of the questions, combining data where it's appropriate, and then comparing different subpopulations within the community that were respondents. So for instance, if I were to show you the results, the question about do we need small community neighborhood parks? That's a question that is loaded based on the life stage of the respondent. So more senior you are, the less likely you are to need that in your household. And the more likely, if you have children, the more likely you are to say that it's not only likely, it's significantly likely, more likely. So if you just take, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to get involved, because if you just take the numbers straight off the spreadsheet, it's going to represent an average, and averages are misleading. For instance, where you live in the community affects how much you'd support which parks.
So can you describe how you would present that data because of the issue you just described?
Well, this is not a flaw. This is not a problem. This is normal.
Right.
That you have differences within the community in terms of what they're looking for. So basically, a cross tabulation is simply where you compare one variable with the results of another variable. So, for instance, need for small neighborhood parks compared to whether they have children or they don't have children. And you can see that it was significantly more likely that people were responding positively to that question if they had children. So then you look at your result, who responded, and I can tell you in this survey, which is extremely common, I would say the norm in community surveys is that older retired people who have the time respond much more likely than do young adults. So we find that all the time. It's common, it's the norm, and it happened here as well. So again, if the question was, how long have you lived in the area? And that question goes right along with the results of ours, which are skewed towards older residents of the community. It's not uncommon. It doesn't flaw. It doesn't present a fatal issue or anything like that. It's just the normal situation, and so you account for it through cross tabulations and comparisons within groups in the community, and you can see who is really wanting a park at Clipper Ridge versus the average for the whole survey response. So that's what I've done, and so when you're ready to hear the results, I need approximately half an hour to do a good job at it, and would be more than happy to do that.
And he's produced like I said, I just saw this today, but he's produced a pretty easy to understand for what's a lot of data, really, kind of tabular thing that shows exactly what he's talking about, and he highlights what segments are hit, the sweet spot for each individual, whether it be hiking or basketball courts or tot lots or things like that. So he's produced this PowerPoint. So would you suggest I send this PowerPoint out to the board now, and then we schedule a meeting and you can kind of drill down into it?
I'm confident with what's there. I made a few little tweaks, but for this immediate presentation that I was going to do, but for the most part. So if you want to have the most up-to-date, I can send it to you.
That'd be great.
It's very, very close to that.
Okay.
Now, if you're going to send it to the board, you may as well put it on the website, because once a quorum of the board has it, it's a public document.
Okay.
What I oftentimes recommend when I work for clients is that they call it preliminary results, subject to change. We could find an error in there or something, and so we'll come back and fix that. So I would recommend that you call it subject, preliminary results subject to review.
And I'd probably rather not put it on the website until he's given his presentation, because I think it would be helpful to have kind of what he just explained to us, that, older people are skewed to more results from there. We probably want to have a memo in front of it that kind of explains that, so you don't have people pointing to results saying, see, only 25% of the people in El Granada want cod lots.
So then
it's not true.
You're going to invoke the CPRA exception for draft documents.
I'm not going to invoke anything. I don't have to put everything we have in the district on the website. So, it's a public document, so if someone wanted it, obviously, yes, they could get it, but that doesn't mean I have to put it on the website.
I guess I misunderstood this agenda item, because I thought we were actually going to hear some results, so I wonder if we
Well,
can
like I
at least,
said,
can we get some hints?
that's up to your
now?
board's will. You can, if you'd like to do that, you can do that. You just haven't seen the thing. It's kind
Well,
of on the
I'm
fly.
wondering if we can, get some key survey results mentioned tonight.
I'm ready. I was ready to do about a 15, 20-minute presentation.
So if your board wants that, let's.
I say fine.
I don't see why not. I think, a lot of people, including
Okay.
me, are, champing at the bit to hear
Well,
this.
let's do it then.
Okay. It takes a few minutes to set up, but we'll get there.
Does that mean I have to move?
Why don't you adjourn the meeting?
All right, we will recess the meeting for 5 minutes.
Okay.
So that's 8:15 on my watch.
And I think that can raise up to.
Yeah, this goes up to.
Somewhere there's a thing that holds maybe because council has a screen. I didn't remember that it was an extension.
Not quite strong enough.
Garage door
Oh, here.
It's a section here.
Nice meeting you. Thanks for volunteering.
Well, presumably, they require the CCWD from the permit as well.
What are they doing with the water stuff in your area?
When you're wasting the first thing to do is stop.
Well, I know some.
What are you talking about? I said, we need to stop building housing
Mandatory.
in California. He said, we can't do that.
I've got to be really close to the 40 voluntary. You're saying that the percentage of savings.
That's
We're not sure what
There's a report in
the
fact.
state level
But
thing.
presumably county planning is counting those.
25% across
In the
board.
administrator's report,
We're going to do 8%
So your
more.
largest.
Yeah, we already.
the administrator's
Doing
report,
that
we
for a
show
while.
applications received for
But that's just for you guys, not for the whole Red Coast, right?
Well, here's the best. Real my crazy board member down.
No, this is just for
And this
us.
is, it's not crazy.
Yeah, so, well, first of all, 42 a year is only for the unincorporated part anyway.
Gigantic.
So-
2 acres. Previously, we.
Oh, no, that's,
Not happening, I presume.
Well,
so,
that's
you
it.
know,
She
what do we
still
got
wants to
there?
do it?
Over half a
So
dozen.
she
I think
ramrods
this
the
is
boat
fiscal
through, I don't know how. And
So,
my one board.
not going like
member
gangbusters,
goes, no.
it's the number of units.
I'm voting no, because we don't know what's happening with this drought. I
So
want that
type
put in
1A
red,
is a
but I'm
single
voting no,
family
because I think it's
residential.
Coalition.
There's big duplexes I've seen go by.
Sure enough, 3 days later, Governor Brown's emergency declaration comes out. I call her up.
Wouldn't surprise me if the county got
And so I'm sitting there, I'm in a rock, a hard place, because she's the one you don't want to cross. And we got there, and I just tell the board, I said, listen, I don't want to be around when we plant this thing and we light off the sprinklers the first day. And there's 2 acres
Why
of
don't you kill
water
half the rest of them?
He told me to wait.
spraying
and see what
everywhere. I said, I'm gonna run far and fast.
Yeah, I think it's.
Is it recycled water by any chance?
No, it's potable, of course.
Oh, my God.
So you, this is your own
And
projector?
this landscape district.
So you
also-
came here ready to do this,
That-
which is what I thought we were gonna do.
Water potable. So we're gonna be planting all this stuff. All our meetings are gonna go get a project. It's unbelievably bad government.
You're on the edge there with the one leg.
You worry. Although, really, it's genius, Chuck, because you did this just before Governor Brown came in. So you included, that's what our colors are, we had before. So we just cut-
I've been joking about this with my partner for 5 years. He says, "What are you doing?" I said, "I am watering the hell out of my house."
If you wanna keep the aspect ratio.
I said, "Because they sent the benchmark." So he walked in that day and he goes, "You're a freaking genius." I
We'll
never
we'll find out how
realized
well
it."
it's being picked up on the camera, because sometimes these things look okay like this, but still get washed out on camera.
I can try.
All right, the color is a little funny, maybe my light bulb is going out, but let's go ahead and get started. I'll make it short and sweet.
Hey, can you take that microphone?
Where's a better place?
Right here is good because that way.
Okay. All right, yeah. Hello?
It's not in the room, it's just in the video.
Okay, all right. You were familiar with, I think, the survey methodology, so I'll go over it very quickly. It was produced by the district. It was was given by San Mateo County Parks. It was in Spanish and English. 2,283 were mailed out in February. They estimate 2,235 were delivered, actually. Unfortunately, there was a slightly different version of the survey put on the county website, so not all the questions could be combined. The data was coded. The raw data is in Excel and SPS format so that you can use it in the future if you ever want to get back to it. Excel is the universal database. Data error checked and verified, and then I analyzed it. So the preliminary results, and I would like to emphasize these are preliminary, subject to review, combined the paper and online surveys into one database, removed unusable surveys, and we ended up with a total of 609 completed usable surveys in the database. I would say that's a 27% response rate, which is double what normal community mail surveys are. So I would suggest that we have an enthusiastic community behind this particular project. 542 mail responses, 67 online. That's what the percentages look like. Okay. It's important to look at what the age of the respondents are, because this is a good indicator of how they're going to respond based on their life stage. So for instance, newborns, 2 to 5, so forth.
I'm wondering how the 0 to 5 responded to the survey.
I don't know how the 0 did, but I'm using exactly the way it was stated. So they don't respond, it's their parents that respond in many of these cases for the children. And all it's looking at is saying, what are the ages of people who are represented by respondents in this survey? It doesn't say that they themselves responded, it just says what is their household composition based on age. And the important thing here is that when we're looking down here in the age range of 56 to 75, and this particular age range in here, that's the majority of our respondents. 79, almost 80% of our respondents, oh no, that's not right either. So a big number of respondents, 236, 259 out of 609 fall into those categories. So what this says, it's not a problem, it just says when you're looking at the results, keep in mind that you're looking at results that are coming from an older, tend to be coming from an older part of the community. And they have different, lots of studies have shown they have different interests, recreational interests than does the younger children in other parts of the community. I compared it with San Mateo Census of Population 2010, and it does show about the same thing. It's not totally screwed up to where you can't use it at all. It just is saying that it underemphasizes the 19 to 20, the 25 to 39-year-old age group. That's underrepresented, and the 40 to 74 age group is overrepresented. That's all it's saying.
Will you be able to present an alternate version of the results where you've normalized it?
I'll show you what I've done.
Okay.
It's coming up. Just very briefly, 30% of the respondents had a child under 18 in their households. That means 7 out of 10 respondents don't have children in their house. It's skewed that way. The older segment tends to not have children in their house. Where do respondents live? These were the categories that were described exactly in the survey, and we had very few respondents from Princeton, so those results are suspect. You can't take those, but we have plenty of other. We have a large enough group from Clipper Ridge, El Granada, and Miramar to be able to say something statistically. What's that?
There's not very many homes in
The-
You
the-
have
the
about
re-
70% of the households.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, good. Then we're not doing bad.
Because we specifically split out Clipper Ridge versus Princeton, even though Clipper Ridge is legally Princeton by the sea,
Right.
Princeton in this case refers only to the commercial area, and there's virtually no legal residents there. There's probably substantially fewer than 50 legal residents in Princeton.
Okay. Okay, so it still is too small of a number to say much about it as a broken out unit, a subset of the data. How long they lived here? Again, if you have tend to have an older representation in your survey responses, it's not unusual. Almost half have lived here 16 years or more. And something like 54%, 55%, the majority have lived here more than 11 years. Visited local parks in the last 12 months by the park themselves. So the Coastal Trail, almost everyone, that's amazing to me, almost every respondent has visited the Coastal Trail. You could argue Clipper Ridge is the most distant from the major population areas here, and that still had 41%. So I was surprised at this. I was surprised how many people see all the parks in the community. Visited Clipper Ridge by neighborhood. Here's a crosstab. I'll go over how it's set up so you can quickly see. Across the top, did they visit Clipper Ridge in the last year? Yes, no. Okay. Down on this side, what neighborhood do you live in? So Clipper Ridge, they live in Clipper Ridge. Did they visit? Yes. 100% of the respondents of the survey who lived in Clipper Ridge said they had visited the park in the last year. This is only looking at Clipper Ridge. I'm not trying to look at the others. But it's amazing to me that if you lived in El Granada, almost a third still visited. Miramar less so, and almost 40% of Princeton went to and visited Clipper Ridge in the last year. So there's a lot of carryover, a lot of, it's not just the local neighbors that come and visit these places. Yeah. Frequency of visiting parks. How often do you visit? And reporting those who said frequently or often. Combined frequently and often. And Coastal Trail, Mirada Surf West, Quarry, Clipper Ridge. So frequently visiting for the majority of people. I hope I get through this presentation. My bulb's going out. So do the local parks need improvement? That's the question. There's Quarry Park, there's Clipper Ridge.
Can we hold the audience conversations?
Yeah.
So over 50% said that the parks need improvement. 21% said maybe. You will find this throughout the survey. There's 12 to 19% who are really opposed to almost everything and are kind of negative. So
That could be any topic.
yeah, so, you'll hear from them, no doubt, when you start making proposals. But there are 70-some% said at least maybe. And do local parks need improvement by the neighborhood you live in? We found that this is Clipper Ridge, and that is the most in need, if you want to call it, from the survey responses. Almost 70% said yes, that needs improvement. El Granada 50, Miramar 49, and Princeton 62. So maybe Princeton is working with Clipper Ridge in that area. So pretty strong support for do local parks need improvement. And what's nice about a survey like this is it isn't the people that come to public meetings. It's the community that's speaking here, and unless you do something like this, you really don't get that kind of information very easily. Another question: need for small neighborhood parks in your area, and not a resounding substantial, but if you combine moderate and substantial need, we see that it's right up there. Only 13%, there's that 12 to 19%, said there was no need for small neighborhood parks in the community. Need for small neighborhood parks by whether they have a child in the household. Not surprising, a significant difference. There's absolutely 0% chance that these differences are due to error, random error. And so for substantial and moderate, if they have children, 78%, and only 6% said 7% said there's no need, compared to double that among people who didn't have children in the household. So the folks that have children in households are pretty supportive of neighborhood parks. Not surprising. Travel outside the area for recreation not provided locally. Would they travel outside the area? Pretty large number. Frequently, often, occasionally, there are 7% said never. You can't read this, but I did my best to get it on one so you can see it. What I compared was this is the total for the entire database, and this is for if there is a household with someone 15 to 18 in it, household with 25 to 39-year-old in it, household with 57 to 74-year-old person in it. What was the ranking in terms of most popular, least popular activities? And you need to keep in mind that age 56 to 74, they're not as active. That's just the life stage they're in. So they're less active with all activities than would be 25 to 39 as an example. But even with that, I pointed out some cases here. Here's the average for the group. Here's the average for this group. So much higher interest in, for instance, hiking. And here's another one. Also, this is the highest, by far the highest interest for our older senior population like me. So hiking. That was the only one that they really stood out in terms of a particular need compared to other segments, compared to the average. Other things that stood out, the young people, this was unexpected to me, 15 to 18 were the most avid dog walkers. The cycling community was, they don't have cars, so maybe that's why they're using cycles so much. Swimmers, they're the big swimmers in the group, whereas our older population is not. Picnics and barbecues, maybe this represents the family composition of 25 to 39-year-olds where they have children at home. Runners, they were the runners. They also wanted to play the playground play. When we come down here, skateboarding, you would have guessed it, right? Would be the 15 to 18-year-old. Baseball more so, volleyball much more, many, many times more than what our other segments of the population are interested in. Whether that's being satisfied by school facilities, this survey can't tell you. Horseshoes, they love horseshoes. Why, I don't know, but the survey said that. Now, I'm going to mention these, where it says other behind it, that means these were write-ins. So anytime you have a write-in, you could almost double or triple. If you would have asked that in the survey, you'd have gotten double or triple the amount that's shown here, because people have to think about it on their own. Oh yeah, well, surfing, of course, I love it. And every one of these was rated the highest level possible in terms of interest. So these are the hardcores that this is what they love. And El Granada, this community here, is all about surfing. We love the ocean, we've got it here, horseback riding and kayaking. So a lot of ocean activities. Can the district provide those? Not sure, but that's what the interest is. Would participate in more activities listed if it was available locally. So if these those activities I just mentioned a minute ago were more and more available locally, there is an interest in having people, in people having them locally. What they are, we'll get to that. Important to have a community center. Wasn't a resounding support for that. But again, when we dig into it, thank you. When we dig into it, we'll see some significant differences within the community.
Just adding the first two, that's nearly 2/3.
Yeah, when you combine very and moderate, that's a fairly strong statement. Again, there's that 12% that don't need anything. And there are no significant differences between their rating of wanting a community center by where they live. It was universal across all neighborhoods. Substantially, but not significantly different, more important if there's a child in the household. And we'll see some examples of that in a minute. Okay, so is there community center support? Yes, but moderate, I would call it. Important to have a community center by age in the household. So what I've done again, here's the percent for the entire survey. Here's the percent when there's a 15 to 18-year-old in the group, 25, 39, 56, 74. And I just picked these three groups out to keep the table simple but provide a range of life stages. And you can see that, if this is the average, who's the big supporter of community centers? The young people. Who is least supportive of the community centers? Our older population, which surprises me because senior centers are such an important part of many communities. It's not showing up in this survey.
Do you think there's any possibility that's connected to the specific wording of the question, where it just said community center and didn't say senior center?
Well, it said community center, and so you can't go beyond that. I can't make a presumption. If it would have said senior center, I would have thought it would have been stronger with seniors. Because again, people are most interested in what helps them. Yeah. So as it stands, community center support is there, especially among the young generation, and especially among the young generation. Should median strips in El Granada be improved? That was the broad question. Over 50%, 60%, nearly 60% said yes. Now you're going to say, well, that would depend on the neighborhood. So that's the next slide. So should they be improved by where they live? And again, this surprised me, the results. Here's El Granada, where all the median strips are. Is that right? And so 63, 2/3 almost said that yes, they need to be improved. Maybe was another 18%. Here's that 12 to 19% that never supports anything. And but what surprised me was, look at the percentages of people who are supporting this. 57% or 40% in Clipper Ridge. want the median strips improved in El Granada. And 38% in Miramar, which I live in Miramar. I ride my bike through here, but I don't get up here very often. I'm amazed that it's that supported. So to me, that's indicative of a community that really wants to support parks and recreation. They don't just look at their own neighborhood. And most likely to use median strips, not surprised, Alameda came out on top. Portola, right over here, 23%.
There's a spelling error in Cabrillo.
Thank you. Yes, there is. Okay. This is what you've been waiting for. Importance of park and recreation facilities to you and your household. So if the question would have been worded to the community, we might have gotten a little bit different response because some people are supportive of the community even if they don't use it in their household. But this question was worded to you and your household. By ages, so I've got the same groupings again at the top. And these are facilities, and there's a program in there. I split it up into 2 slides based on rank order of the total percent. So most popular on down to least popular. And given the fact that we have an overrepresentation of older adults without children who have lived here many years, some of the results aren't surprising, and I did consult, I didn't have time to present the findings, to compare the State Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan for California findings. They had similar things to this. And almost universally across the state, people love undeveloped open space. They love paths and trails. So that's not a surprise. That's what statewide we find. However, let's look at differences within life stages of people in the community. Bike trails came out on top as the most popular, but look at what drove that. That was the young set. But even here, the older set, we had over 50%. The majority said they wanted to have bicycling facilities, bicycle trails rather, unpaved trails. Honestly, if I wanted to say I've been involved in the Coastside Recreation Committee for about 4 years. And whenever we held a public hearing, this is all we heard about. We want more unpaved paths. We want more unimproved open space. But there's a lot of other things that the community wants besides just those. And if you take it as a total. Oops, I didn't want to do that. Public restrooms, paved paths and trails, pet waste stations, benches and seating. Not too surprising, that's the senior population that wants that. Look at the pet waste stations. The big users are the families and the young adults. But even the children, the teens are interested in that. Passive parks. This is really common and popular throughout California. It's almost less here, believe it or not, than what we see in other parts of the state because we already have so much maybe. Swimming pool, a very extremely expensive thing to build, an extremely expensive thing to maintain. 56%. That was the young adults who were wanting, the big supporters of swimming pools, but also here as well, less so the senior population. Public parking, small neighborhood parks. Who are the big supporters? The families. We've seen that elsewhere. So you can't see it, I highlighted in yellow, you'll see that the areas that were significantly different than the total population averages. So if you would have just looked at this number and said, oh, okay, this is what we build, you would have missed out on a number of the nuances, the important differences between members of your community.
Is the yellow highlighting showing up in a slightly different color?
Yeah, it is. It's there. It's those
So
are the
those
ones
yellow
that you can
highlights.
see a little bit different.
It's
yeah.
pretty clear on the printout,
Yeah.
on the PDF, or the PowerPoint.
My light bulb's going out. So this is the second half of the less popular activities, but yet still important. So for instance, ball fields, nearly half of the teams wanted ball fields. So they're out of Little League. They're not in Little League, they're older in Little League, but they want ball fields. And recreation programs, who's the big supporter of recreation programs? Kids. Not seniors, but kids. So if we're trying to, your responsibility as a community recreation program is to provide the needs as much as you can for all segments of the community, not just those that are the most vocal. And so kids are underrepresented in all surveys, community surveys done. So this is nice to see that they're finally getting a voice in this one. And here, golf, I was shocked. I thought the seniors would love it, but they are satisfied. But here are the young adults, bocce ball, and so forth. So this is a start for your facilities. Yes?
Can you explain the disconnect between the minuscule percent for horseshoe pits versus a previous slide that showed a high interest in
Yeah, I double
horseshoes?
checked that. I don't know yet. I can't tell you, but horseshoe pits did not seem to be supported very much. And I went and checked my printout. So the printout, what the number I took off the printout you put on the slide is accurate. So I have to go back to run the analysis.
It's a very strange disconnect there.
Yeah, I agree.
How was this question phrased? Was it top 10 or how was what was the actual question?
It was phrased, yeah, why don't you?
Well, we can, and we'll send around when we send around the PowerPoint, we can send around the original questionnaire so you can kind of benchmark back to it.
It's important to know that have the questionnaire in front of you because the way it's asked will impact, obviously, the results. So, I don't know, do you want to mention that one?
Sure, which one was it?
Importance, that whole big long series.
Okay, it was how important are the park and recreational facilities listed below to you and members of your household?
So it listed the facilities. We have some others that were write-ins, but they were not a large number of those. Okay, so if you want, I want to leave with this as a suggestion. I've taught, I've taught park master planning classes now for many years, so I'm used to this. Here's my suggestion for you as a group, that I know the county has tasked you to come up with the prioritization, but that's near the bottom of the list. So the standard process in parks planning, and whether you like it or not, you're involved in park planning, is inventory of existing facilities and programs, which I understand is starting to happen. The in-house assessment, but I will point out that Mid-Coast Community Council has a recreation section which has a incredible variety of existing studies have been done. There's one actually for the Mid-Coast, El Granada, Miramar, that has looked at existing facilities that are out here, compared inter-organizational facilities. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel in a lot of cases here. Your needs assessment, yes, you got the big part of it done, but another part is comparing it with local communities. How do you stack up with Half Moon Bay or Pacifica? Can you trade and co-share facilities and services in those communities instead of you're a small district? Then you come up with recommendations, but the recommendations really come from what I would urge you to do is a Parks Advisory Committee. That is a public advisory, not decision-making organization that of interested members in the community who can look at the needs assessment, look at the survey results, help you develop your prioritization. A public hearing of what your recommendations are, or else you get killed. In this community, you will just get blindsided. And then I think you're at the stage of prioritization. and then you need to worry about the implementation, the budgeting, and all that kind of stuff. So that's all I had, but if there's any questions.
For the public hearings, the thing that I always lean toward is town hall format. Does that make sense to you?
Yes. Yeah. You know, your breakout groups are always really good because then nobody can grandstand. Because a lot of people just like to hear themselves talk. And so what we found is that if you have breakout groups, so they're working together instead of just, you know, championing their position alone, that tends to produce more consensus and a quicker coming to reasonable consensus of what you're going to do.
I hope that you'll remain significantly involved in this. It sounds like we can really benefit from your expertise.
Well, I told her I would be interested.
And, you know, on behalf of the board, I'd really like to thank you very much for volunteering to do this. And looks like this was a great analysis. And I didn't realize that just coming up with a way to tally and present the data would be more complicated than coming up with the questions.
Thank you.
I'd like to also thank Delia for her effort in this. She put a lot of work into the survey and almost wrote it single-handedly and pushed it forward. So I did my best to stay out of her way. Slow the process.
Can we turn off the projector? Are there any people from, we seem to not have any speaker slips for anything tonight. Anybody from the public want to ask any questions? Podium.
Yeah, I did want to thank Patrick for this. This was, data analysis and presentation like this was great. I did have one question as one of the people who answered online. It looked to me like almost all the online results were marked bad. Did I catch that correctly? As not valid?
No.
Okay, it went flashed by so fast I couldn't quite see it.
The first time, I think it was 69 responses were online that were included.
Fran.
Fran Pollard. Thank you, too, for doing this. It was great. And you said you still want to do some more work with this, or is this going to be the final presentation?
I live here.
Yeah. No, but I mean,
Yes.
I thought before you presented it, I thought you said you were going to work on it some more. And
Oh, the results. I'm looking for feedback from the board and from the public, and if find things like the 25%, yeah, I got to figure out what that seems like an anomaly to me. So I'll work on that. That's what I mean by reviewing the results. Do those final tweaks.
yeah, okay, good. Thank you very much. It was great. I think we have all our park people right here.
Dale, 3 minutes?
I'll keep it to that. Dale Ross. Is it possible to go into the data and say, just to pick one, local small parks, and if we find that say in Miramar there's a strong interest in local parks, is there a way to find out which streets or which neighborhoods within 500 feet and that sort of thing? Is it possible to slice the data that way?
I didn't present it here, interest of time, and I don't have the map, but in Delia produced a grid on my recommendation of neighborhoods in the area, a grid that overlays the map of the district. And we used the cross-street section, cross-street question to identify where on that grid their house was located. A lot of people just wrote their street address, which wasn't helpful. In many cases, just the name of the street. If we had the address, we could have found it.
Yeah, in hindsight, I would have put street 1 blank, street 2 blank,
Yeah.
but a lot of people just put in blank street.
So do you essentially have a push pin map?
By grid, so that, we can get a little finer detail, but I would think that the neighborhood is probably pretty good.
So do you have, to some extent, a push pin map of where the responses came from?
I don't yet, no.
Because one thing I'm curious about is if it's fairly uniformly distributed over the district territory,
Or
if
the
there's-
neighborhood.
or if there's clusters.
Don't have that.
So, one of the things, having been a math major, and I actually know what SPSS is.
Good.
Never used it, but helped a lot of people who did in the 70s. I'd kind of like to see a normalized version. This is good to have as is, but I think that it's potentially useful to have a normalized one where you essentially project out based on the population age distribution what the results would have looked like if you'd gotten the same rate of response from all age groups. And I'm pretty sure SPSS can do that.
Oh, yeah. I've done some of that stuff.
So that's potentially useful, because if you were to normalize it by age population, then we might see really high demands for some of the things that aren't really apparent with the raw data.
The difficulty there is explaining what normalized is to the public. And are they going to believe it?
I know what it
Is
means.
it hocus pocus? Is it a black box? Whereas this is straight, this is what the data is. So, you look at that.
Yeah, it's essentially extrapolation. Any other questions? Rick?
Nope.
David? Matthew?
I don't think so.
Joe?
So we will circulate this to all of you. You'll get me the latest version, and then we'll circulate it to you with the survey questions.
So we're going to get electronic format?
Yeah.
Can I suggest that the presentation as well go on the website, because I think for most people that will be more valuable than the raw data.
Are we putting up yet links to the PCT video?
I don't remember.
Yeah, I had suggested to staff that on our agendas page that they also include a direct link to where PCT puts the meeting videos up on YouTube. So for this one in particular, and there's a way, off the top of my head, I don't remember how to do it, but there's a way that you can actually go into YouTube and have it create a link that drops you into a specific time point into the video. So you could include a secondary link that says the Parks and Rec survey results presentation starts here. Click this one.
Chuck, do you think we'd be ready to schedule our grand public meeting to present these results to the public and get additional feedback live from the group? Or?
Well, I'd probably want to talk about that a little more, because Patrick just put that last slide up that showed the prioritization, which wasn't kind of what, we kind of jumped to step 4, and we might have missed step 1 or 2 talking to you, and I haven't talked with Patrick about this at all, so. But, we'll talk, we'll send stuff out, we'll talk, and we'll figure out what our next step is and go from there.
There's one thing that I should point out to everyone. The top-rated results are very consistent with the county's 3 needs assessments. The first one was done before I moved here. I think it was 89, Fran. Then they did one in 97, and then they did one a little less than 10 years later. Oh, 2007, okay. And so in those 3 needs assessments, those results were very consistent across the 3, and they're also very consistent with what we see here, that the highest demand is for passive uses and walking trails and things like that, and general open space. So these results are totally consistent with 20 years worth of dusty county needs assessments. And the county did the last one with no intent to ever actually use it. They said it's just going to go on the shelf next to the previous ones gathering dust. They admitted that at the time they did it. I said, why are you doing it? We're going to have to think about what the next steps are.
A suggestion I would have is we're kind of a hybrid. because you are clearly a urban area, whether you want to admit it or not. In terms of the density of the housing in this area, in the district is reasonably dense, like you would find in a suburb of Danville or something. Not big houses, I'm not saying the same thing, but the density is urban density, but yet we want to believe that we still live in the country. And so we have a community that, you have the challenges of you're an urban district, different from the county because the county is providing for all those open spaces, and that's a lot of what they do, whereas you're really looking at an urban community that is growing rapidly and different from what the county is. So you gotta, in my opinion, you have to take a little bit of perspective that this really is a city, a small town rather.
I think it's suburban. Well, legally, the coastside's actually semi-rural. So, we have the urban pockets surrounded by rural land. But I have to say, I have no kids. I said we need the little pocket parks. And the reason that I think that should be important to people, even if they don't have kids, is because otherwise the kids are playing in the street. And that's an issue for everybody, regardless of whether you have kids or not. You don't really want the kids playing in the street. So apparently not enough people saw it that way. Dale, briefly.
I'd like to add a comment, I'll go here, to the relative high need for walking paths. We have medians in Granada in particular, that some are used for walking. You can see the walking trails. But others, we'd love to be able to walk on them, but they're totally occluded by trees. One is the Alameda. There are trees that go almost from curb to curb there, and so you have to kind of go around the trees in a zigzag path to really do a walk down the median. Cabrillo's a little bit that way, although it's a wider median and the trees are farther apart. There are paths that allow you to go across Cabrillo. And those are paved, actually. But to go down Cabrillo and head to the post office, there's no walking trail down in the middle of Cabrillo. And so there's a pent-up demand, I think, just from my own experience, for people to be able to walk down the middle and enjoy all the scenery along the way on the medians, because we just have too many trees. And they seem to be, when trees were for sale, seems like the original founders of the community said, "Oh, good, we'll buy more." And so we have, if we had trees a little sparse, we'd probably do some of that.
Well, I think most of the trees that you're referring to are, what's the word, opportunistic, I think is the word. They sprouted. Daniel Burnham's writings, which are in the Chicago Museum, and one of our residents here brought back copies, which I have a PDF of. They're really hard to read because it's been photocopied 19 times. But Burnham's writings specify very clearly the density of the trees at different elevations going up the slope in El Granada. And my estimate is that the density of the trees that we have on the median strips is at least 3 times what Burnham specified. And so, we do need to thin it out. So some people think that all the trees should be cut down, and that's not going to happen. They'll fall down on their own.
Or harvested just before then. Or harvested before then for new uses.
Well, if you watch when they fall, the county public works people have a tendency to come along with chainsaws and dice them up into pieces small enough for you to carry off to save themselves the trouble of doing it themselves.
Yeah, we're getting off topic here.
In any case, I think that a fairly high priority for the board, or hopefully at least most of the board, is in fact improving the median strips, because Burnham's explicit design was that those are supposed to be linear parks so that everybody could walk to the center of town, and that was quite clearly in his design. So I would like to ask, is making the Burnham Strip property into something similar to Marina Green. Is that consistent with your interpretation of the results? In other words, essentially an informal ad hoc play area.
It's a little early for me to make a decision on
I don't think that was really addressed at all, and it was just a matter of asking if they felt that improvements were needed or not, if they felt they were necessary, but there was no specifics in the survey about how
Right,
to.
you'd have to interpret it,
Yeah.
but yeah. Okay. Anything else on this item?
Nope.
Well, again, thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing more of you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we will move on to item 4, consideration of sewer authority mid-coast side general operating collections and capitalized maintenance budgets for 2015-16 fiscal year. Chuck, I know you can't pawn this one off on Delia.
Okay, here we are again, reviewing the SAM budget for the coming year. I've outlined on my, want to take 2 minutes?
Do we need to?
No, okay, we're fine. I've outlined on my agenda memo kind of the broad brush budget line items. So they're in the O&M budget for SAM, they're projecting they're going to spend $3.161 million for this fiscal year ending in 2 months. And the new budget is going to be 3.34 for O&M. For collections, it looks like they're shifting a bunch of the treatment plant staff's load onto the collections, and that's why that is going higher. So that's going from a predicted expenditure of $805,000 for this year to $982,000. And what that means is in past years, they have taken the treatment plant operators and they've applied a quarter of their salary and benefits to the collection side, because supposedly they're working on the collection stuff. I don't know how it works that way. And then they have 2 maintenance guys, and they take 50% of the maintenance guys' times and put it on collection. So they've upped that percentage somehow, which is why that increase is so great.
Now, one of the things that had occurred to me recently I'm not clear on, and I should be, but I'm not, is when they refer to collections, is that maintenance of the SAM-owned facilities, or is that the contracted maintenance of the member agencies' facilities?
Well, that's what I'm not clear either, and I don't blame you for not being clear, because, you know, I think it's the collections guys are the ones who go out and clean our stuff.
Right.
There's not really much to clean in SAM. There's stuff to fix, pump stations, things like that, and that's where I think the mechanics time. But I'm unclear as to why that split is there. It's historically been there, and, you know, I've said to your board before, the only reason I haven't made it a bigger issue is because, you know, we're paying kind of the same percent, whether it's collections or treatment, so it hasn't been a big deal. If we were picking up 50% of the collections thing, I'd be making it a big deal, so it doesn't really matter to us.
We actually have the lowest of the 3 for the percentage on collection system maintenance.
Right.
Because I guess our system's just easier to keep clean.
Well, I think Half Moon Bay may have more miles. I'd have to check that, but Montara takes a bigger thing because they've got 18 pump stations. And that takes time. They do what's called a pump run, so I don't know how often they do it. Every Monday and Friday, they do a pump run and check all the pump stations, so that's why they're getting hit at that time.
If you think about it, Half Moon Bay's linear feet of sewer is going to be nearly double ours.
Right, so. And then I point out that in the past, you know, I took an average of the past 3 years' salaries and benefits, because I've spoken with you about this, and they're projecting an increase of 25% over the past 3-year average, and for O&M, and 15%. And benefits are going to increase 15% over the past 3-year average. I don't know why that is. It's difficult because they've moved personnel between the O&M and the collections to, you know, I have to take a day to figure it out. So that might be a question you guys want to ask at the SAM meeting, how that works out.
Well, I can give one of the reasons for that. Did we get the right page here?
And let me just finish, and finally, they're proposing to replace a section of the intertie pipeline from Montara to the Portola pump station because it's old and pitted and rotted out and whatnot, so. And I think that's long overdue. They've got to start replacing all those lines.
Okay, on the piece of paper that you got at the beginning of the meeting, if you look at the top of the second page, identified as page 6, it says effective July 1st, 2014, classifications covered by this bargaining unit, I should mention this is out of the union memorandum of understanding. Classifications covered by this bargaining unit will receive a 3.5% across the board increase. And then it says effective July 1st, 2015, classifications covered by this bargaining unit will receive a 3.75% across the board increase. The SAM board discussion of this prior to July 1st, 2014 was to limit the total increase in compensation costs to those numbers, the 3.5% and the 3.75%. And what that meant was that if the various benefits costs, medical and retirement, went up by a certain amount, then that potentially impacted how much of a raise in wages they would get. The general manager has interpreted across the board to mean give them a salary increase of the 3.5% and the 3.75% based on total comp, ignoring the fact that...
Which includes benefits.
Right.
I was explaining to them, not to you.
Okay. So what this does is it drives up the total comp costs a lot higher than the board limited them to. And this was done unilaterally by the general manager. He did not want to admit it. It took half an hour of questioning by me at budget workshop meeting. I think it was the budget workshop meeting. Rick, do you remember? Was it that one? Because that one wasn't televised, unfortunately. Oh, it was the last regular board meeting?
It's in the minutes.
Okay. I questioned him for half an hour at the board meeting until he finally admitted what he did.
So what Leonard's basically saying is if the guy's there is making $100,000 a year and he's getting $60,000 in benefits, the MOU says he should get $3,500 in salary or salary applied to health care or PERS or whatever it may be. And what the general manager did was take that 3.5%, give him $3,500 on top of the salary, and also give him 3.5% for the benefits also.
Well, let's put it this way. If they're getting $100,000 plus $60,000 in benefits, he gave him 3.5% on $160,000.
So I just explained.
Okay.
I just split it up a little.
Sounded more
So we got
complicated your way.
3.5% on the $100,000 and 3.5% on the 62, which I don't believe the MOU says. I read through the MOU. I sent it to Jonathan. He read through the MOU. To me, it's pretty clear, and I have a whole bunch of reasons I put in my email that you have to really work hard. What was the word you used?
Torture.
You have to really torture yourself to get to that read of it. So,
I've spoken to a number of people about this, and there's only one person that thinks that the manager did it the right way, and that's the manager.
Well, and your board, that's a discussion for your SAM board at the next SAM meeting. But, I agree with you. Jonathan does. Jonathan called Jim Copeland, who's SAM's attorney, and said, how did you get a legal read on this? And he said, I never saw that. So that hasn't...
I think that can be brought up.
Yeah, it hasn't passed snuff with legal.
So one of the bottom lines here is I'm recommending to this board that we do not approve the SAM budget as presented for two reasons. That's one of them. The unapproved raises that were given out. And so the next one is scheduled for this July 1st, and that has to be stopped.
And Jonathan asked a good question of, this agreement, this MOU has been in place for 2 years. What did they do last July 1?
That's what I'm saying. That he gave them 3.5% on total.
Oh, that was I thought
Right.
he just did it at the turn of the year.
Yeah, I had thought
Okay.
you said the opposite, that in 2014 it was not applied to the, it was only to the salary and not to the retirement benefits.
No, my understanding is that he gave him 3.5% on total comp, but he gave him that as a salary increase.
So, okay. So did they have the June 1 meeting, June 1, 2014, to allocate
He's
between
saying-
salary, retirement, and
He's
health?
saying
And
at that-
allocated all the salary?
At that meeting,
I don't know.
they gave them all the money, however they did it. So it effectively
Right.
was this.
So in other words, the
7%.
salary, instead of going up 3.5%, went up also 3.5% of $60,000.
Right.
In your example.
We don't, we don't
But-
know exactly how they divvied it up though, because.
Well, but they didn't
divvy.
divvy it up, because then on top of that 3.5% that was based on an erroneous base, in addition to that, we also have increased healthcare, maybe that's minimal, but substantially increased retirement costs. And so, while the intent of the SAM board was very clear that the total increase in compensation costs was to be limited to 3.5 and then 3.75%, what you look at here is it's 24% over a couple of years, and that's unsustainable. Now,
Well, and I don't even understand how it got.
well, there's another reason why it's high, and I didn't try and do the math. You can probably do it faster than I can at this point. But one of the other reasons why that percent increase is high is because at a recent SAM board meeting, Director Jim Harvey from Montera asked Tim Costello, the shop steward for the union, do you need a haircut? Do I need a haircut? You know, you never ask a barber if you need a haircut. He asked Tim, do you need another operator? And so, in what universe is the answer to that question going to be no? And so the board, so of course the answer was yes. The board directed the manager to put an additional operator in as a side item in the budget. The manager ignored that direction and put it into the main part of the budget. So that's another reason you can't figure out what's going on, because there's an additional operator thrown in that was not authorized.
Well, and I would ask that question directly at the SAM meeting so we can find that out, because they obviously don't need another operator.
I'd ask, what's a side item if it costs the same money?
Right.
Basically,
It's my impression that it is
to be
in the
broken
budget.
out
That's what
separately.
he's saying.
It's in the budget, it
Right.
wasn't put in as a
And
side.
maybe that explains
To-
why it's 25% higher.
That was, per the board direction, was just put it in, and if you don't like it during the discussions,
Right.
approve it without it, or whatever you're gonna do.
No, Rick, it was to be presented separately
Well,
so we
don't
can
ask me what my
evaluate.
opinion is, Leonard, if you don't want the answer.
It was to be presented separately so that each board could evaluate.
That was the
whether-
first statement we made, and then we changed it to say,
Well,
you
it's in
can't do
the
two pieces
budget,
of the
so.
budget, just put it in, and if you don't like it, take it out.
All right, so what's the sense of this board on that?
Rather than, well, I don't know if we can do something like approve the budget pending, correction of those salary items or something like that, if that's the issue.
Oh, and I'm not looking for approval tonight.
No, okay.
This is our first look, last time I think we approved it in August, by the time we were done going back and forth.
But doesn't that
What-
make
What I
it
don't
dif-
understand about the benefit side is that the discussion of the whole PERS contract is every year the employees have to pick up a higher percent.
Right.
So, I don't understand how benefits are going up if they're taking the hits every year.
And up
That's-
substantially.
So
Yeah.
they're taking serious hits because they have to start paying all these medical things. So I don't understand how benefits are going up if that's the PERS and that's in PERS. They just have to do that, and that was all part of the agreement.
Right.
So I understand that if he was, and if the raises were based on total compensation, including benefits, and that was a mistake, and that needs to be corrected.
And that's gonna be interesting,
Yeah.
because those guys have been getting it for 10 months now.
Yeah, so,
Well, you can't take it back, but I think what we have to do is have the accountant do some arithmetic, and basically, the historic overpayments have to be deducted from whatever future increase they're scheduled for.
Right.
Until it's balanced out.
But that's something that's gonna have to work out at the SAM board, not here. So like I said, we're not looking for budget approval here. You know, my other, again, I think I said last time, I'm tired of trying to manage SAM from 5 miles down the road, so I look at their budget, I think, again, it's overwrought. They outsource a lot of things I think they could insource. You know, they pay $350,000 a year in equipment repair expenses. I started benchmarking to similar plants. We've got a plant down near us that does 2.6 million gallons a day. They spend $100,000 a year. I got another plant near us that spends 60. I've got 2 plants in my district that together each spend 70. And they're at 350 year after year after year. Now, I can't make an apples to apples because I don't know what they're spending it on, but I go through their warrants and they pay this company, Calcon, loads of money. I don't know what Calcon's doing. They're doing a lot.
Well, when Dave
It's
Dixon
just-
left.
And they've got, you know, mechanics on board too. I just don't get it, but
Let me
it's tough
point
for me
out,
to manage that from here.
you probably don't know this, when Dave Dixon left as the SAM plant manager, Calcon hired him.
Oh, really?
Yeah, really. So I know the answer to this, but everybody else here probably doesn't. You run 4 sewer plants at the other end of the state?
Yes.
And how many employees do you have for those 4 sewer
There's
plants?
7 operators.
Oh, it's up to 7 now. When I asked you before, it was 6.
No, it's
And then
always
you
been
told me
7.
6.5 more
Two.
recently.
I think it's 7.
So you're up to 7. So let me make this real clear to everybody. Chuck is running 4 plants in a somewhat comparable size range to SAM. They're half the size of SAM, but that's still comparable. With a total of 7 employees across the 4 sewer plants. What's wrong with this picture? Now, of course, you don't do collection system maintenance.
We do, with a
Oh.
separate group of 3.
Oh, okay.
So,
So you have 10 people doing 4 sewer plants and the collection
collection
system.
systems. But, yeah, I mean, we have profit motive too. We're a private company, so we have that driver, and that's difficult to put that driver into government, so.
And you don't have a board member who likes throwing buckets of money at government employees.
And I'm gonna stay off that.
And how many total
So
employees
I
does Sam
think,
have?
I think what.
Counting the manager, probably 14.
Yeah, and it's the admin staff too, that's just the stuff I look at and go, well, you know, all that kind of stuff, so. But we're not gonna solve that issue here tonight and whatnot. What I'd say to the 2 SAM members is try and get to the bottom of that salary and benefits stuff, try and find out what's happening with the equipment repair, make sure they don't hire another treatment plant operator, because the plant's been running without them for 20 years and we're still at the same flow and it just doesn't need it, so that's my recommendation there.
So are we going to be able to get our budget approved by July 1st?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, how are we
Yeah.
going to do this?
Because we have another month and another month. We've got May to approve it and June to approve it. And as I pointed out, because of that craziness with the budget, with half of them passing a different budget than Montero, we approved SAM, I think, in August. It wasn't last year, it was the year before. So we'll get it done. And, you know, we always have to hear what comes out of the other 2 districts, because they may be having the same discussions.
No, I guarantee you that Montero's going to rubber stamp it.
Then they rubber stamp it. Then it may be 6-2.
Well,
Does Sam have a labor negotiating?
yeah, I contacted him and he sent me some documents and he asked me to give him some documents. Like, I don't have time to go find that stuff, and I never got back to him, so I need to do that. He's paid on retainer, so whether we use him or not, he gets his $865 a month.
75.
Whatever. It goes up when
I got my sights on.
it goes up when I'm not looking. Well,
But it seems like then he could help you out with getting the answers.
right, yeah, so I need to get back to him like tomorrow and say, you find the documents. So, what?
So we can table this to next month. I've given you my input of what I think the questions are you guys should ask.
So,
And feel free to email me if you.
what I really need to know right now, though, is does the board as a whole agree with the position I'm suggesting here?
Would you succinctly restate it?
That the raises that were given are not in compliance with the terms of the MOU, and that we don't need another treatment operator at this time.
Yes to part one, did the manager or former manager agree that another operator was needed?
He certainly didn't say
Well, they put it in the
otherwise.
budget,
Yeah,
tacit agreement.
yeah.
All right, so everyone agrees.
I have a little thing to point out. There's one big capital maintenance project for the next couple of fiscal years, the IPS repair.
Page number?
And isn't one on here.
Oh, that's what they were griping about at the MWSD meeting.
And,
Page numbers
this,
in the budget.
A little summary memo here for the repair replacement. It's got the gray header on the top. Starts off with rehabilitation of 2,350 feet of 12-inch diameter force main, and then it gives a number, $1.347 million cost. And that's followed by an SRT report in which they constantly talk about having to replace 2,700 feet of of the force main.
I missed the, wow,
And
difference in numbers, I missed that.
That's 350, I mean, it seems small, 350 feet, but who knows what they're talking about, is the question.
Well, there's a segment
And-
between the two pump stations in Montera, Valimar and Montera pump stations, that has been constantly repaired. There's segments that have more pipe clamps than pipe. I mean, seriously, you see the photo of it, it's just a bunch of pipe clamps lined up. You don't even see the pipe. And so the engineer, SRT, is recommending replacement of, whatever that segment is. I thought it was 1,300 feet, but, whatever that number is. 13, 17, 23, one of those numbers like that.
So let's just get the number of.
That's like a $1.3 million project, if I
Let's
recall.
just get the number of lineal feet the same
Well, I wish we
in
could
everywhere.
somehow mark what, how do we locate that in the budget
Is this
without
on
a page
page
number?
It's at this is the beginning of the CMP part of the budget, and it's right at the back. It's just before the draft SRT report.
There's also a page 4 that has a B1 that says 2,700 feet of 12-inch diameter.
Right.
Okay, here's a picture, I just happened to flip open to that. Here's a picture of the clamps lined up. Let me hold this up for the camera.
I don't know if this is just a simple mistake, because all the other numbers on this page are right out of the SRT report.
But you see this photo here with the clamps lined up? This is the one I was talking about.
And it may be, I don't know, yeah, but that's a good question to ask, but maybe they're replacing the force main section, and it may break the gravity in the 350 feet before.
I don't think any of this is gravity there.
Yeah, I thought it
Pretty
was all
sure it's all
force
force
main
main.
down to Clipper Ridge. I mean to
All right,
Franklin
well, that's
Street.
something you can ask Sam staff.
I'm not sure, there might be a gravity segment at the far end of the Burnham Strip.
That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, there is.
Well, force mains generally break the gravity before they go into another pump station, or else it becomes a different type of pump station, a booster pump station at that point in time. I know it does, because our tanks intercept it, the wet weather storage tank.
Right.
So it breaks the gravity before that.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure where that occurs is right at the far end by Capistrano.
Yeah, you're
So,
right. This
Can you,
really fuzzy little map actually shows that.
okay, can you put this paperclip in my copy on the right page? Because I don't know how I'm going to find it without page numbers. This is nuts.
I'd like to inject a quick positive note that in the past, we've had just head-to-head battles in the past over, that's mine, that's yours, you have to pay for it, you don't have to pay for it, we don't have to pay for it. I think we're past almost all of those. There's still some issues that pop up, but we have a good working relationship with Half Moon Bay, and they are on board with the parts of the SAM system that are the SAM system now. We don't get you know, people say, well, this pump needs to be repaired or replaced, they've been saying fine in general. I mean, there's a lot of discussion around it, but it has been moving forward and we're past a lot of that stuff. So we don't have those daily battles over every single item. No, we're just not going to pay for anything, and it's been working very smoothly, I think, on that now.
I did get a little bit worried at some of Debbie's comments regarding the JPA. It kind of sounded like she wanted to revisit that issue.
Well, I'm saying in general, it's pretty good, and they're doing their due diligence, you know, at the same time. So they're representing them, but in general, it's been moving along pretty well, I think.
I think they want to rewrite the JPA to
Yes.
clarify it one way or the other. If they're gonna be responsible for the IGS, let's put it in the dang JPA so we don't, they're like you,
Yeah,
Rick.
yeah.
They were tired of years arguing, so let's just finalize it.
Now, for everybody's benefit, I actually have what I think is a really simple, clear explanation for why Half Moon Bay has to pay their proportionate share of the IPS maintenance. And that is that each of the 3 member agencies delivers their wastewater to SAM. Half Moon Bay does it at the plant. Granada does it at the Portola pump station. Montera does it at the Montera pump station. And anything different would not be fair, because then one agency benefits by virtue of the plant being in that agency's territory. So very clearly to me, and I hope to everybody else with this explanation.
Well, the other explanation is that the Intertie pipeline is a SAM asset, not a Montera and
But
Granada asset.
that, no pun intended, connects directly to what I just said, that it's SAM providing a point of presence. I forget whose term that is, but I'm borrowing it for this usage. SAM provides a point of presence in each member agency.
I'd also like to say real quick that, you know, a couple of years ago, we had some serious problems where we were overpaying things because of the flow meter issues. We are years enough past that we are back to good readings, and this current budget is based on more realistic findings, which is a significant saving for us this year.
Yeah.
Our percent has dropped reasonably back to what it should be, or even a little better than that now.
Right.
So we're seeing good numbers, and that's definitely helping our district at this point. So
Wasn't our percent almost exactly our ownership percent?
it was very close, or maybe even a tad lower, like a tenth or something, but it's,
Yeah.
instead of being like over 30, it was, you know, or 33 one year. It's
Right.
down to 29 something
Oh,
now,
it's
so. we're-
28.5,
Yeah.
if I'm reading the correct
So
page.
that seems to have been working well, which is significantly, besides just having good data, that means a lot of savings for us in the hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Right.
So
Now,
that's really good for us.
That issue is potentially going to have to be revisited, because there was a problem with the system itself that the board was only told about at the last board meeting. We've never heard this before, that the fact that the air vac valves are way overdue for being replaced. There's, I can't remember what they called it. They may have called it banging in the system, where because the air vac valves are not working, the pump stations up there start and stop, and it's causing, under certain conditions, some of the flow that has been pumped out of one of the pump stations to go retrograde back through the pump and then get pumped again. And so they're getting billed multiple times for that amount, you know, the amount of banging. And their flow is up, and they want an investigation in that. And, you know, we're going to have to support them on that. Now, who knows how much it is? It may turn out to be a minor amount. I don't know how in the world you can even guess at that. Although I did propose.
So you'd have to look at the meter too, what kind of meter it is.
Well, I did
Read
propose to
that.
one of their directors a potential way to quantify that, and that would be to look at the readings the separate readings for Montera, Granada, and Half Moon Bay through Half Moon Bay's meters, not the arithmetic at the plant. And then that'll give you one flow, and then look at the total claimed inflow to the plant and compare them. And through some arithmetic that shouldn't be difficult, you can probably figure out what the double billing is in Montera. But that's just a guess on my part that you can do that.
Or do what Rick's talked about and go 50, 30, 20, and never talk about this again.
Well, that seems to be kind of dead at SAM, but, you know, if we revisit the JPA agreement, I would like to suggest that we do ownership percentages on the fixed costs. And of course, you've told me that the fixed costs are most of the costs, but it might be more sellable, and I volunteer Rick to push this.
Oh, I backed away.
What was that?
Said I backed away from it, so I don't.
But, you know, if we can get an arrangement where the fixed costs are billed on the ownership percent, and only the variable costs, which is basically chemicals and electricity, although electricity is a huge cost, so if only the variables are billed based on flow, I think that these recurring arguments over metering would be less.
I don't want to get pessimistic on
less
you, but
significant.
what'll happen is we'll be arguing about the flow meter readings on 10% of the costs instead of 100% of the costs. So it might be more maddening. So.
Well, you could be right. All right, so I suppose we've flogged this enough for today, so let's move on to the next item and flog Stan some more. So the minutes weren't in the packet, but I asked staff to get them distributed for the meeting.
I can run through it if you want.
So
Sure.
Leonard, did you look at the minutes? Did you see
Yeah,
what
I can't find the exact thing that you were referring to. I did find another error in the minutes. It says Chair Lohman
page.
reported that Director Boyd asked to be removed from the ad hoc personnel committee. No, I recorded that.
So on page 6 of 54, and 2/3 of the way down, it says Director Warren expressed his concern.
Right?
A proposed percentage increase in base salary. I thought you would want that to say that it applies to base salary and benefits.
Boy, am I
Read.
gonna have to go watch the video of this? All right, let me think about this while Rick's
Okay,
doing
well, you
the
don't
report.
have to decide here, you can decide at the same meeting.
Yeah.
I just wanted to
Okay.
point that out to you.
Real quick, I'm going to hit a few points out of the March 23rd SAM regular meeting. We did a few minor new business things, which was approving a painting job that had to occur, reappointing the accounting group, the auditors. Couple more interesting items is we're still involved with, there's a big Half Moon Bay issue on the Kehoe water course, which is a close neighbor, next door neighbor of the SAM plant. And as that moves forward, SAM has expressed an interest in becoming a major participant in that, which Half Moon Bay's agreed to. And we are going to try to get the different options that are being discussed right now to get those maps up on the SAM website. I don't know if that's occurred or not, but so everybody can see what the options are. Then we talked about, like we talked about tonight, a huge amount on the budget itself. An interesting item we didn't mention here, we sort of alluded to, you talked about the JPA. They put $20,000 in the budget for next year for possible additional legal action with a JPA lawyer to help move that process along. So there is money in the budget to possibly rewrite the entire JPA. But pretty much we talked about the budget the whole time, and that was really the big items I have.
I have a little bit of a recollection that the board was not unanimously, but somewhat more in favor of targeted amendments to the JPA agreement rather than just opening it up for a total rewrite.
I don't know, and I don't want to redo the JPA tonight, so. It's just, all things will be considered, I'm sure, just like they
Well,
say on PBS.
I think that where we left it was to have the member agency boards discuss what amendments they would like to see to the JPA agreement and then bring those to the SAM board for reconciliation.
So that might be an interesting subject for our next meeting, which would be actually for us to discuss what we like and don't like about the JPA and start coming up with some bullet points. You know, lock in percents or, you know, redistribute it the way you're talking about it. You know, it's never too soon to start that. So if we, you know, get our thoughts in first, we can help, you know, push for those sorts of things. That'd be a good agenda item next month.
So is that something that general manager and general counsel can confer on and make suggestions to this board?
Yes.
Okay.
Pretty busy, but and our next meeting is only 3 weeks away, right?
All right.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna look at.
So I don't think that, I don't
And
see
maybe
any
there is-
urgency to this at all. Did you get the sense there was any urgency to this?
Well, my only urgency would be to, if, you know, if we're the first group to present some thoughts, then that's usually better to be upfront than, you know, trying to change something at the back.
Right.
So if we could lay out, and it doesn't have to be, you don't have to rewrite the whole JPA for us, but just, you know, a list of 5 bullet points or something like that. Oh, it would be nice to solidify this, because this is fuzzy, and the whole stupid thing about capital items is a disaster that everybody knows about. You can't use it 3 different ways in the same sentence.
Right.
So we have to say what's a capital project and what's a project, and what you can opt in out of, what you cannot opt out of, and things like that. Just, there's a whole bunch of clarifications that just have to occur.
Right.
That would just make life a lot simpler.
Well, yeah, because the base agreement shouldn't be that complicated.
Yeah, we don't even have to say, I don't think, you know, these are the percents or something like that.
Right.
We just said, you know, we have to clean up all the verbiage around projects and
Right.
what's capital and what's capital for depreciation and what's capital that everybody has to pay for, that kind of thing.
Well,
You know what I'll do? I'll get a copy of.
So again, I don't want to do it tonight, but that's.
I'll get a copy of the JPA we use down at my district. We don't belong to it, but we send our sewage there, so.
What I would suggest is that all of the vestigial language in the SAM JPA agreement that was obsoleted once they had made the final decision that there's going to be a single plant and a single outfall. Once that decision was made, half of the JPA agreement is then noise, and so all of that stuff should be deleted, and that's one of the reasons why we have this difficulty with, you know, opting out and all that stuff. So all of the opt-out language goes away also once you start gutting it the way I'm suggesting.
That's good.
Well-
And somehow I think Jonathan's really good at gutting documents.
In the minutes, it says that General Manager Hopkins, ellipsis, discussed adding a line item of $20,000 for legal services in connection with the drafting of possible revisions to the same JPA. What is that? What are those legal services people going to be doing? Who gives them direction and what is that?
Well,
What's that for?
that's a budget chunk just to throw out there into the future, and then like the next line with Catherine Slater Carter, we need to start coming up with our suggestions, which will all be presented to a legal group once we've kind of decided the framework and everything. And that, you know, they're not just gonna go write a JPA for the heck of it. It would be based on the bullet points of all the people,
Right.
and then the discussion, and then legalese has to occur around all the agreed upon bullet points at that
So this is
point.
just the 20,000 that's on the shelf for
Yes.
when it's needed, and it doesn't mean they're out looking for legal services.
No, they're not asking for anything now. We just threw some money out there because they wanted someone who really knew how to write a JPA, and it was their, you know, get some, you know, focused money on that rather than just, you know, the normal legal fees we pay every month, so. It's
Basically,
just tossed out there. We said, well, we're gonna need some real advice on this. Let's put some money out there. to write it up well, so.
But let's be clear that that's, an if necessary thing.
Right.
There's nothing that says that we intend to spend that much. It's that we are saying, well, we might need to spend up to that
That's
much.
right.
I would be surprised if it could be done for that much.
Well,
These are lawyers.
note that I did not vote yes to send the budget out to the member agencies due to the difficulties I had with it that I've already covered here. So anything else you want to report from this meeting?
Nope.
I will mention one thing. On the annual argument over member agency refunds, we didn't have the argument this time, except for one problem. The checks are pulled off the warrant report because they computed the refunds based on plan ownership percent instead of percent paid.
How's that different?
Because the payments are
Oh,
mostly based on
based.
flow.
Yeah, yeah. It
And
doesn't matter if it was $5,000 or something.
It's the principle.
I know.
All right, consent agenda. Anything to be held for discussion? I gotta find my minutes real quick. I think I had something marked on it. Yep. Under item 5 on our minutes, let's hold that for discussion. So anything else on the consent agenda to be held for discussion? Is there a motion to approve item 7, the warrants? See the revised warrants that were distributed. Item 8, March 2015 financial statements, and item 9, assessment district distribution number 9-14/15.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The consent agenda is passed 5-0. Okay, item 6, the minutes. In item 5, which is on the third unnumbered page of the minutes. It says that we reported that SAM Board is currently interviewing candidates for the new engineering position. No, the SAM Board is not interviewing candidates. Apparently the manager is interviewing candidates. I at least got the resume of, I think it's 3 resumes. I don't remember, Rick, did they distribute that to the whole board or just the committee?
Just the committee. I never got it.
So the personnel committee members, theoretically, I hope it's not just me, maybe they just gave it to me because I made noise. I have the resumes of the engineers, and because, this should have actually gone on SAM report, but in any case, we need to amend the minutes here, I guess, to, how are we going to fix that? Delete, what? I don't know how to fix that.
What?
Where it says the SAM Board is currently interviewing candidates for the new engineering position who may be qualified to serve
Why
as.
don't I put the SAM general manager's currently interviewing?
Okay, that'll work. So, nothing else, I'll move we approve the minutes with that correction. Is there a second?
Second that.
I think Jim by hair. Any further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? Minutes are approved 5-0.
Who has authority to hire that engineer?
It appears to be the manager.
Is he still the manager?
He claims he is.
I thought he was gone in the middle of this month.
He has moved to Nevada. He will be back for the board meeting.
That's what I was told by Jim Copeland too when I was asking him the other question. So they're expecting him to attend the meeting.
Right.
But then, does his appointment end?
He would not be interviewing or approving any more hires, if that's the question.
Well, I want to make sure your board has that, because I think it'd be prudent to wait till your new general manager came in before hiring a guy. So.
Well, more specifically, because the engineer may be asked to be the interim general manager, I think the board has to hire the guy.
And what I'm saying, irrespective of that, your new general manager may have a thing,
Yeah, that's also, yeah.
he may be going in a
to-
totally different
yeah.
direction, and I hate to saddle him with the guy he
Right.
doesn't want.
Yeah, so we need to make sure of that, that's delayed. Okay, committee reports. Reports on seminars, conferences, or committee meetings. I'll mention that I gave a quickie report on behalf of this district at the Mid-Coast Council's Parks meeting yesterday, and I guess I was the fourth speaker out of 5, and all the other ones had questions asked, and I didn't. Nobody asked me any questions. Basically, I covered about half of what was in the staff memo for tonight's item 3, and mentioned that I had called Chuck in the afternoon to get some ballpark guess as to how much we might allocate to Parks and Rec this coming fiscal year, where we had originally proposed 50,000 and backfilling it with an increase in sewer service charges. And so, per Chuck, what I recorded is that we probably won't be raising sewer service charges this year, and we'll probably be able to put at least 150,000 into Parks and Rec.
If we need it, yes.
Well, okay, any other, was there a LAFCO meeting? Let's see, this is April, so no LAFCO meeting.
No, I'll actually be the rep at the main meeting, because Joe won't be there.
So are they happy to have you because it means I don't show up?
I can't answer that.
You want me to?
Was I looking in your direction? Any other seminars, conferences, or committee meetings? Oh, shoot, I forgot something. CSDA legislative days, there's some, there's some specific presentation being given on dealing with the Public Records Act, and if Rick is available and willing to go, I think we should send him, and I meant to suggest that we add that, and I only found out about this like last night or something, and it's supposed to be approved in advance. Do you know when legislative days are?
Nope.
Sometime in mid-May, I think.
I find out I probably have 30 emails on it. I hadn't planned to go, but
I think it was in one of the emails that Aaron forwards to us.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in Sacramento.
So does anyone on the board have a problem with sending Rick if he's available to go?
Do we need to add that as an urgency item to approve?
I don't think so. I don't think anyone's going to sue us over his trip to Sacramento.
Well, I thought
It's
AB
just
1,
mileage.
I thought AB 1234 requires
Advance approval?
Yeah.
I mean, what is it lodging, is it,
No, it's just mileage. Maybe,
Yeah.
I don't know if I have to buy lunch there or something like that, but it would be meals plus miles, so I'll be driving a hybrid, so.
And the meeting's in the future, so this is advance, right?
Okay, so if this is sufficient, all right.
I'll
So
check on that.
check that out, and I'm looking forward to hearing what you learn about the Public Records Act. But if you go there in general for legislative days, you've been to that before, so you know better than I do what goes on there.
Actually, I went up there for a president's meeting when I was the president of the chapter. I haven't been to the legislative days.
Oh, because the legislative days is an
Right.
opportunity to rub elbows with the legislators there.
Yes. Yeah, most people have already got meetings set up. I don't know if I'd be able to lock in a meeting, but then it's easier here just to go and talk to Jerry Hill directly. So,
Okay. All right, going once, going twice. Anything else for item 10? Item 11, attorney's report.
no report?
Item 12, general manager's report.
No, nothing further.
Item 13, administrator's report.
Nothing further?
Item 14, engineer's report. There's actually something here for engineer's report.
Yeah.
So how are we going to get the word out to the community as to where and when the construction will
We're going
be?
to post notices, and I talked to KJ, and they're gonna send me a clear map that I can put on the website saying, here's where the construction's gonna be.
And then after that's on the website, maybe Delia can put a note shortly before the construction starts on next door.
Yeah.
Would it be possible, we've discussed this before, there are often construction projects that aren't ours. Would it be useful if it's a big obvious one to post it and say,
Not ours?
here's the group responsible, if you have any additional questions, contact them.
For
Just
ours?
so people, what?
For our project?
No, for the ones that aren't our projects. I mean, there's some very, if someone's gonna be doing something we know
Right.
about.
Yeah, we could, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, Chuck didn't hear well enough what I said. What I said was not ours.
Yeah, not ours. Go put signs out.
But, you know, in our interest to help the public, if we could
Right.
post just the name of the project, a description, and a phone number.
Right.
Just so it gives them, they could just go immediately and find the right person rather than wasting a day
Yeah.
running around trying to find somebody.
Noticing the people that are directly affected, because a lot of the
No,
projects
he's talking about projects that aren't ours.
that aren't
Aren't ours.
ours.
It's the same thing.
Just like a little one-liner or something.
And I mentioned this before, the district owns, I can't remember if it's 3 or 4 magnetized signs, except that they say Granada Sanitary District, that in the past, when Howard was the engineer, every contract required the contractor to put our signs on their truck. And the contract also said, and they must be returned in good condition at the end of the contract. I think that it might be a good idea for us to go back to that practice of having the contractor have signs identifying the district so that people know that it's us versus somebody else. So you might need to get new mag signs. I'm bringing it up now because who knows how long it takes to get them made.
Right. Well, I'll talk to somebody.
And so can you also, who writes the contracts? The engineer, or do you write those?
Engineer.
So can you remind them to throw in the
Yeah, it's too late for now.
Howard
We can do it
Hoffman
next time.
clause?
Yeah.
All right. We're adjourned.